This is a story of one family's life at Four Winds in Kenilworth, Four Winds Dalehouse Lane, and the family have lived here since 1940. And my mum, who is 96 and is still with us, which is wonderful, is going to tell us a little bit about the life that she has had at Four Winds for 75 years now. And when I was a baby, my first birthday was here, and now I've just had my 75th birthday. That gives you an idea of how wonderful the life has been at Four Winds. And I'm looking at my mum now, who is so special, and we thought it was a really good idea to record this very special life, Granny. The story of your life at Four Winds begins in 1940.
Yes.
And that's when you, Ken, my father, and you, Margot, my mother, Ken and Margot Whitworth, moved out of Coventry because of the likely bombing
That's right.
of Coventry by the Germans. Is that correct?
That's right.
And can you tell us a little bit more about how you came to that decision?
Well,
What made you decide to leave Coventry?
well, we decided that a whole year had gone without any bombing, and it was time to move out of the centre of Coventry. And I phoned all the estate agents, and the only two houses to let in a very big area was this one and one down the road. And Ken always wanted to live on a hill, and we thought this was much too big for us because we had very little furniture. But we moved in here and very soon the threat of bombing in Coventry started, and
By that time you had moved out, and so you were grateful.
Yes, we moved out before that, and eventually when the bombing started in Coventry, which was in the autumn
Of 1940.
of 1940, and a lot of our friends just arrived on our doorstep to come out of Coventry to be. We welcomed our doctor and his family, and the vet and his family, and
And the Vickers Jones.
and the family from the centre of Coventry, and our doctor's au pair, and all sorts of people. They just walked here. So many of them walked here. And just came to the door.
I can so well remember all the people that came out, even though I was only a baby. They lived here for quite some time, and most of them came to our wedding in 1965. So they remained very firm friends. Can you tell us who came out from Coventry when the bombing was going on?
Yes, one girl walked all the way out here. She was the au pair to a friend of a surgeon in Coventry,
Yeah.
who worked, Trevor Beryl. He worked for about 48 hours without stopping after the bombing, but his wife and family had moved out of the area, but his au pair walked out to us. Just found us, but we had people, very old friends, who lived right in centre of Coventry, or near the centre.
In Stoke Park, wasn't it?
In Stoke Park, and my husband said, "Come and live with us and bring all your furniture." They brought their things and put it into what was a squash court. And they came and lived with us, and we just had our family turned into something very large.
From being just the three of
Yes,
us,
we had-
you were a houseful.
We were a houseful with 4 middle-aged brothers and sisters who came and lived with us, and
That was the family of the
the
Vickers Jones.
the Vickers Jones.
And
That's right, and they we shared the house.
it must have been enormously complicated to have done the cooking. I so well remember the Vickers Jones, even though I was a baby.
Yeah.
G, Mer, Baz, Mary,
Yeah,
and they became so much a part of our family.
they certainly
How
did.
how on earth did you manage with the cooking and the living and the bathing and the daily life with such a big family?
Well, we took it in turns, and Mildred, the one of the 4 brothers and sisters, she and I took turns. She cooked for the family one week, and I cooked for the family the following week, and we coped with that extremely well, and we were very fortunate in that the grocer delivered things still here in spite of the restriction of petrol, and
you had the baker and
yes,
the
butcher,
butcher.
the baker, the grocer, and the butcher. They all went on delivering all through the war, which is absolutely amazing.
And I think the butcher used to cycle here.
No, he came in a van.
Ah, who was it that cycled here during the war? Was it the bread then, or
Oh, I can't remember
No.
those cycling.
when eventually the bombing did begin, and you were out here? What happened? I remember that you have said that you could see the fire of Coventry from the windows upstairs,
Oh,
and
the light from the burning Coventry was so brilliant that my husband took a photograph of our garden and the paddock with a good camera, Rolleiflex camera, but no flashlight. The light was so strong that we've got
we've got a picture of it.
and that picture of the burning Coventry, which was
Horrifying.
yes, it
horrifying.
really was, and somehow you just, in some extraordinary way, people just got on with it and lived their lives and got on with coping with everything.
Yes.
To such an amazing extent.
Oh, it was an
We
experience.
had friends who just walked out. Some walked all the way from Coventry. Some came by car, and they just came and sort of said, "Can we come and stay?" And our house was full.
And what about the motorcyclists?
My husband went outside and he found down the drive, right just inside the gateway, was a man on a motorcycle and sidecar, and inside the sidecar was his wife and little boy, and so he brought them into the house, and we put the little boy to bed in a cot upstairs, and they stayed. They just came and stayed wherever, sat down wherever they could. But they stayed for the night because they were so afraid of being in Coventry for the bombing, which they had experienced the night before.
Oh dear. Daddy also took photographs of the bombs coming down onto Coventry, didn't he?
Well, any photographs that we got are in the album. But it was amazing that the burning Coventry could light up so amazingly that gave such a light to the whole of the countryside.
It could be seen from many, many miles away.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And as a result of this bombing, one night you went out, or Daddy went out down the drive, and he found a motorcyclist. Can you...
A motorbike and sidecar, and they had come out from Coventry because they were so afraid of being there the previous night. And they just saw our gateway and thought, well, that'll do, and they were prepared to sit there. And he brought them into the house, which was the husband and wife and a little boy, a little baby, really.
And so the house was absolutely full.
But yes, friends from Coventry they just came here and brought their supper. They'd come in and sort of say, "We've brought our supper, can we stay?"
When once you'd got all these people in the house and the paddock was empty, the garden didn't have any trees or anything, I remember that you had goats in order to give us milk. You had geese in order to have the eggs, and chickens, and you made a vegetable garden, and this vegetable garden fed all your visitors.
Yes, we had 2 vegetable gardens, one down to the bottom of the garden and one at the across from the drive, and we really fed ourselves to a lot of extent.
I think you were like the television program, The Good Life, because...
Well, probably was a bit like it.
Yes.
At the time, but it was all so serious and so difficult. I suppose we just accepted it and got on with it, and this is what is so amazing with the people during the war, is they just got on with it and dealt with life as they found it.
Day by day.
Day by day, yes. I mean, when you think of the terrible bombing of Coventry and the fires there, to think that the fires of Coventry lit our paddock.
Yes.
And we're, 5 miles away?
Yes.
It was quite amazing.
And,
really.
and then when you got a goat, can you tell me about how...
Oh, well, we got the goat and it had a baby quite quickly, so that we could have the milk, and I had to learn how to milk the goat because my husband was taken poorly and had to go into hospital for a short time, and I had to milk the goat, much to my horror.
Was it difficult to learn how to milk a goat? What did they do? Did they stay still?
Yes, they did. I can't remember, but presumably we tethered it. But I had to. I don't think I did it for long. But the whole reason for having it was to give us extra milk.
Yes.
And the little. What do you call a little goat? Anyway, it used to jump over the cars. It would climb over the top of a car and forget. We were horrified because you can imagine something like that climbing over a car.
A very naughty little goat.
Yes.
And were you frightened of the geese because they were...
Oh, well, yes, they were... You had to be very careful with the geese because they would come for you. But mostly we had a help, one called Nellie, and she'd all her life had dealt with things like geese and sheep and everything. And she coped with it. But we did have one duck, that somehow got drunk on something that Ken had put, and she had to sit by the pond and duck it into the water to make it drink, to stop it, because it had a drink that it shouldn't have had.
With the chickens, you used to collect the eggs, and I think you used to put them, apart from the ones that you had for your everyday usage, you used to put them into, is it isinglass?
That's right. And you make a solution of water and isinglass in a container, and then when you've surplus fresh eggs, you put them in, and they keep their life. And so in the winter time, you'd go, if you wanted them for cooking, you just go and fetch them out and wash them, and use them for baking.
Making cakes and everything.
That's right.
Absolutely astonishing.
Yes.
And I suppose then we come on to how did you cope with an enormous family, with washing and bathing and clothes washing? And I mean, the mind boggles when you had absolutely no easy electricity in those days.
We made our own electricity, so it was purely for light, and anything like that we had to do by hand. All the washing and the cooking, and anything like that. I mean, we had no amenities like they've got nowadays.
When you came to Four Winds, there was no electricity, but you had your own well, and you pumped your electricity. Am I right?
We had an engine to operate the well, to draw the water from the well, to take it up into the roof, and we had a series of batteries in one of the outhouses, and the pumping of the well
made electricity.
Well, it built up the batteries, and the batteries then
made the electricity.
So when any electricity we used was very difficult. We had to be very, very careful.
That was amazing.
No lights were left on or anything like that. But somehow nowadays nobody would cope with it like we had to. But in those days, so many people were just the same.
Well, I think you are of an amazing generation of people, and right throughout your life here, and with all of us as we grew up, you've been a source of tremendous advice based on your wartime experiences of there not being very much of anything.
That's right. If I wanted to, if I had to go to Coventry, which I did every week, to do the books for my husband.
He was a dental surgeon, wasn't he?
He was a dental surgeon, and I had to walk from here to Gibbet Hill, up Stoney Road.
Wow.
And I'd walk up there, catch a bus into Coventry, do whatever I had to do for the surgery, and then to do it in reverse, catch a bus, come out here, and walk back home.
Yes, that's amazing.
So,
and you had got Nellie here. By that time, had my brother been born?
Well, probably, yes.
Yes, I mean, you had the three of us eventually during the years, and I think the Vickers Jones were with us for most of that time.
They were with us when John was born.
Yes, and
because they were so amazed they hadn't seen a baby before, and they couldn't believe that he had nails to her fingers. And they were bachelor brothers and sisters. They couldn't believe it.
Oh, that was a wonderful experience.
Yeah.
And
but they were so good when you think that they were middle-aged women and men. And
all of one family.
All of one family. and they coped. They coped with us as a family with young children, and one of them had you in the bedroom for a while.
Granny, what were the house and gardens like when you came here? How did you begin to decide that you would have vegetables? Did everybody help you plant the vegetables?
Well, Ken coped with one vegetable patch, and when the Vickers Jones came, Basil did the one across the drive, and in those days it wasn't unusual for people to have kitchen gardens.
Oh, right.
So I think that they would always have had one themselves, and
so you really had to. You were self-contained in your vegetables with potatoes and beans. I remember the peas,
yeah.
podding the peas.
Yes, well, we did as much as we could. I expect we had to buy as well, but yes, we were fairly self-sufficient.
No, brilliant. Nowadays, as we sit here, we're looking out of the window on the wonderful cedar tree, which is about 90 feet high, and all the other trees in the garden which you and Daddy planted. How did you decide which tree to put where, and how did you make such a lovely, lovely garden?
Ken was always interested in gardening, because his from way back, and his natural instinct was for gardens. But a great friend was a very knowledgeable gardener, and they knew all the Latin names of all the trees and things. But the tree that we can see now was a named variety that we went to Scotland specially to get.
You now, Granny,
Yeah.
have 18 great-grandchildren,
Yes.
which have come from over the years. The eldest now is 21 this year, and in the garden they have always enjoyed. What have you seen them doing in the cedar tree?
Oh well, we put up swings, and they love getting on the swings, and there's a rope ladder there, I think, and and as soon as they come, the children go running down there and play in it. Amazing, aren't they?
Absolutely amazing. The garden, the house and the garden, I think has been the most amazing experience for the whole family, because every single one of your 18 grandchildren have been here, lived here, stayed here,
Yeah.
and you've looked after them. Did you enjoy this?
Oh well, yes, they were. We've loved having them, and they've always been so happy to be here.
They have.
And they've enjoyed it as a home.
Tremendous continuity every time they came.
Yes, it's will be sad to think of it not being here, but time has come.
Eventually, and inevitably, we got married. Richard came on the scene, and can you tell us what you suggested for our wedding?
Well, we had a not a tent.
A marquee.
We had a marquee on the lawn, and Ken also had a small marquee put up on the top lawn for his friends from Coventry, whoever wanted a drink.
A bar tent.
An extra drink. But we had a nice day, and you got married.
We had a marvellous,
went well.
marvellous wedding. It was beautiful. And over the years, all our children have had marquees at various times. They've had them for their 18th birthday, their 21st birthdays. They've had them for, or we've had parties for our 40th, 50th, and coming wedding anniversaries.
Yeah.
It's been wonderful that you have been living here, and that happened because in about 1979, Grandpa found that the garden was too big, so we extended the house, and this is now your house here, and you've been here for 35 years in this particular part of the property.
Yes, and it's been we've had it's been a very happy time, and we've lived together.
We have.
Very happily.
Yes, it's been a really remarkable property, and now your latest baby has been born. Your latest great grandchild to my brother George's family.
Yeah.
George's family now have. He had 4 children, and they all have children, and the latest baby.
Yeah. Yes.
And
I have a busy time seeing that I send them birthday cards and the appropriate check. So up till now, I've been able to do that.
You're finding it a little difficult to keep the diary going for...
Well, I think the time is coming when I shall leave it to others.
No, not yet, Granny. Do you remember the year when I think it was on the 9th of December, and we had such deep snow that all the electricity went off, and we had no lights, no electricity for a week.
Yes.
Do you remember how you coped with that?
Well,
well, we all coped together.
All coped, yes. Well, I think as a family, we've always coped with anything that had to be. If it had to be,
it had to be.
We've coped.
We cooked. We had no electricity, so we cooked our food. We opened the doors when the sun was out, and the sun heated the house. And then in the evenings we chatted with we did have battery radio, but it was an extraordinarily long time without electricity. And
that's right.
I think you polished all the furniture.
Probably.
Yeah. I think you polished the furniture, and you cleaned the silver, and you cleaned the brass handles on the desk to keep yourself warm.
Probably.
I remember you doing it, and
most of that was a regular thing in the household in those days. It was not something unusual, but yes.
You knew exactly how to keep warm. And when you had a ration book during the war, can you tell us about the ration books? Because
yes, we had ration books for a long time after the war. They went on, and we seemed to cope all right. Although I think occasionally you'd find a good friend who perhaps was a farmer or something like that, and you'd get a little bit of something extra.
And you had some parcels sent from Daddy's relations in South Africa?
Yes, we did. We had parcels sent from, not a lot, but we used to get things.
And did they send crystallised fruits and things like that?
Possibly.
Yes,
I don't remember.
I think they did.
They did send us things.
And I think bananas were...
Oh, bananas and sweets. During the war, you had to be very careful about yeah, we had I think I think was probably a patient of Ken's. She had a sweet shop in Coventry, and she used to say, come up. And when there was nobody in the shop, she would
Give us a little extra.
give us the sweets.
Yes.
Well, not give us, we paid for them, of course.
Yes, yes.
But
Let us have some sweets.
somehow, it's a funny thing, but you just got on with life. There was no good making a fuss about it, because there was nothing that you could do. So you managed, and I suppose you probably cooked in a different sort of way, and made do with what you'd got, and nothing was wasted.
When Daddy was very ill with peritonitis,
Yeah,
he had to go into hospital in
Warwick.
Warwick, and you
Hospital.
had no car. How did you go and see Daddy?
Well, I walked. I suppose I walked to into Kenilworth and got a bus, and went to see him.
And did you cycle?
And I cycled. Yes, I did. I had to cycle. Yes,
I think you had to cycle through Stoneleigh
that's right.
and up Stoneleigh Hill.
Yes, that's right. And I cycled to the hospital
Amazing.
every day.
Yes. That's...
And anyway, he was in for a little while, wasn't he?
He was, and he was very seriously ill. But
Yes.
fortunately,
Uh,
they.
Yes, that was Trevor Beryl who looked after him.
Did he operate?
Yes, he operated.
Oh, right.
And
So the cycling journeys must have taken you such a long time.
well, I just got. It was something I never thought about. I just obviously wanted to go and see him, make sure he was all right, and I did it every day.
Yes, I think that's stunning. Absolutely stunning.
But then he came home, and took a little while for him to get better.
Yes, I'm sure. What do you remember Four Winds for most? When we actually move in 3 weeks' time, and we're going to live in the middle of Kenilworth, what memories will you take with you, and what are the important things which you will be thinking about after 75 years here?
Well, I think one's got to remember the happy times, the good times, the lucky times.
Yes.
The lucky times during the war, when we could so easily have been bombed.
Absolutely.
I mean, Coventry was so seriously attacked, and we had a bomb dropped by one of the planes on its way back home. It was dropped
just down the road
down
here.
the road,
Yes.
and my parents then heard about this, and they came out and were stopped getting here when they eventually got here, but they were stopped, of course, to find out because the road was up.
Yes.
Uh,
And were Granny and Grandpa at Wesley House, your parents, were they at Wesley House during the war, or was it after the war?
Oh no, it was after the war, and he was about to retire, and Wesley House, the house down the road,
Yeah.
came up for sale, and so they bought it before they were due to come, but Ken had an assistant at that time with a family, and he put them into my father let them go and use the house.
Oh, right, right.
Just glad of somebody to use it. They're not for any
No,
monetary value.
but they just stayed there.
They
But I do remember that Grandpa and Daddy, they put up a wire from Four Winds down the quarter of a mile down to Wesley House, and you could wind up and talk to each other on that telephone.
Yes, that's true. I'd forgotten.
And where did Daddy get those telephones from? Is it?
Well, I don't know.
But
Probably
the wartime.
yes, it was all probably war. What did they call it?
I'm not sure, but
Anyway, it was.
But it was remarkable how we could ring them up just without having to pay for it.
Yes.
And Granny and Grandpa Hintz came here a lot, and it was a really nice life for the three of us to grow up here.
Yes, when you had the use of going down to the house there, which had a nice garden and a river running through it, running down beside it.
That's right.
And then my mother moved into
Kenilworth.
Kenilworth.
Yeah. She was
content
very,
with.
Yes, she was content
And
with
she
her.
made friends with an elderly couple of sisters next door.
That was nice. And then Daddy's mother came here, Granny Whitworth.
Yes, Granny Whitworth used to come, and stay.
Which she came from Derby.
I used to go and fetch her from Derby.
Just to sort of remember 75 years. Your children were baptized here. We grew up here. We were married. Myself here. Your
Interestingly enough,
Yeah.
the church you were married in was a Pugin.
Oh.
And this, I just happened to be on the telly yesterday.
Oh, right.
And it was a Pugin designed church, that little Kenilworth church.
The little St Austin's Church.
Yeah.
Yes, it's a very special Pugins, and
Yeah.
So we've had weddings,
Oh.
christenings,
You-
birthdays. We've had
Firework parties.
and we have had non-stop parties where you've come and joined us with all our friends, and we've had marquees. The house has been a true family house
Yes. it has.
for all of the 75 years.
It has been an amazing home, and I was lucky that we were able to build on here, and we've lived really side by side, very contentedly.
Beautifully contentedly.
We haven't.
I couldn't have done without you.
Well,
Couldn't have done without you.
I couldn't have done without you. I should have had to have gone into a home or something or other.
And
But,
George and Sue come over regularly to see you.
Yes.
My brother.
Yes. And they and their children, and they enjoy coming.
Yes, it's really special, and all our family.
Yeah.
And Richard is the Richard manages the household, doesn't he?
He does. We couldn't manage without him.
Well, I tried to keep you under control,
And
with very little success.
what are your memories of the house, Richard?
Well, it's mainly buying this as our family home in 1981.
Yeah.
And seeing that Granny and Grandpa moving out of the house and into the newly built wing.
What do you remember most about that?
about that, it was changing the features of the house, moving the windows around to accommodate our children rather than your generation. And then, of course, later on, the further extension at the other end, which made the house what it really is today, with everything together. 2 living quarters, and then the billiard room to house the early 1880s billiard table, which I inherited.
How did that manage to come here, Richard? How did you manage? What is the history?
Well, my grandfather bought that in 1923, when it was already 40 years old. It then passed to my uncle, to my father, and ultimately to me, and so to us.
And when it came to you, you could have sold it, but...
Well, why sell an heirloom that one's going to use? And we've made great use of it for the family. The children have played with me, and we've had a couple of evenings with professionals. Quite a feature of the house, I would say.
An absolute feature of the house.
Yeah. Well, we've been such a happy family, and Richard's been very tolerant and very helpful all the time, hasn't he? Whatever, so that really it has made life here. We've been happy, and there've been no problems, no unpleasantnesses.
No problems.
It is difficult for me to imagine how a house could run as we've done, with no arguments, no unpleasantnesses, all living together, but separately.
Yeah.
And not in encroaching on each other's space.
No, I think that's so.
I'm just very grateful to the fact that I was able to stay here. It's been a lovely home for me, and I think you've enjoyed being at Four Winds, haven't you?
Absolutely.
Well, it's nice that you feel the same way as I do about how happily we've all lived here together. It reminds me that when we first arrived, and Granny and Grandpa were in this part of the house, and we were in the main part, and you and I, Jan, were very careful not to rush through and without knocking and announcing ourselves. But of course, our children, the grandchildren, took no notice of that, and they rushed through, and they became much closer to you and Ken and Margot than they had been before, when we didn't live together. And all in all, from my point of view, it proved a wonderful house. Here was I travelling around Europe and the USA during the week, and I could leave everybody here knowing not only were you all happy together, but you were safe. We are out in the country, and we're hidden from the road pretty well, and there's not been a sign of any burglar or anyone coming round untoward. So it made me very comfortable when I wasn't here, which was so often 2 or 3 nights a week. And the other side of that, it was such a wonderful location that I could get to everywhere I wanted to go in the mornings without having to get up at silly hours at the crack of dawn.
Four Winds was built in 1928, and when my parents came to live here in 1940, it was a small house, a smaller house in the middle of 2 acres of land, and over the years this has been made into a wonderful garden. We have been very, very lucky that we have never ever had any building round us, so therefore we've lived in an idyllic situation, and as we leave, I think we will be leaving with a heavy heart, because the property has been so completely special for our family. Do you agree, Granny?
I do, and it's. I think it's done what the best possible for all of us and for so many years, and I think that now has come a time when we should leave it and go and be more compact for you for you as a family, because the garden is really will be getting too much for you to look after, and the house too big.
And we've tried to keep it as Daddy would have wished it to have been kept
Yes,
over all the years that we have been here.
yes, I think so. But I feel that the time has come for a change of lifestyle.
So, Granny,
So I don't think I shall be sorry to go, but I look forward to
our new home.
to whatever.
You being with us in our new home, and I would like to say, just as a parting end of the story, you have been a totally and utterly amazing person to have had to live with us. I'm so proud of you as my mum and granny and great granny to all the children. Nobody could have been more wonderful than you.
Oh well, we've just been got on and made it all work.
We have,
Haven't we?
and you're brilliant.
The story that we've been telling here of this house, which has been such a wonderful home and place, so many people have visited us. They arrive here, they just come and live here and stay here all through the years for so long, and it has been a brilliant home for us all. And I've enjoyed it very much. It's been wonderful for me to be able to stay near to the family all my life. I've been fortunate. So I hope that our next venture will be a happy one.